What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the TMossBoss Show. And in today's episode, overall, I wanted to defend console players. More so just console games, consoles, like PlayStation, Xbox. Because a lot of people trash on consoles, are like, oh, you don't have enough controls, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like, my thing is that if you've mastered a console to where you're playing as if you are playing like a PC gamer, because I will have to admit, playing on PC games, it is a little bit better. Controls are a little bit better. And I remember, I have to say, probably the one time where I would have to disagree with a console game, or with the game being better on console than on PC, is the game War Thunder. Now, when I played War Thunder for the first time, I played it on PC. I played it on my laptop, and I was playing with the laptop mouse pad in the middle of the keyboard, and was overall using that, and then of course the buttons to play, and then I worked my way up to like a mouse and was playing on that for a little bit. And so now I don't even really play War Thunder anymore, but the times I did play War Thunder, I had people commenting underneath the console video that I uploaded like years ago. I uploaded because I think I played it for the first time on the PlayStation 4. So I played it on there, hated it. It was honestly the worst thing that I've ever played, and I'm like, bro, the controls on here is far different. I don't like how it's like operated. It just seems like, I don't know, maybe it is the game had updated and changed and they made it a little bit more realistic and I just didn't know how to play it anymore. But as I recall, I didn't have no problems playing it on PC. When I played it on the PlayStation, I was like, yo, this game is trash. So everybody was getting mad at me. It was like, oh, you don't know how to play, you don't know how to play. I'm like, no, this game is just weird. I'm like, the controls is weird when you play it on console. So I will admit, there are games that are better on PC. But if it's games where it's like, you're going to notice a dramatic difference within the two, then that's when I'm like, okay, then play either on one or the other. Like, for an example, now playing racing games, I guess if you play with an wheel and paddle, or not paddle, but overall the wheel. If you play with an actual driving wheel, and then it's you could play it on whatever, a console or PC. But if you don't have one of those, what are you going to use? You're going to use a controller. Playing any racing game possible. Now, there might be some people out there where they play it on a keyboard, a racing game. And I tried that, and it just doesn't work for me. I play with a controller. A controller is so much more better, and it's like that with certain games. That's why they have it where if you go on to Steam or any other game, they give you that option to where you can play with a controller. Why? Because more people are used to using a controller. PC is just too difficult. It costs, it costs too much money to be maintaining a PC. I'm saying, thank God they sell already built laptops and PCs, because if I had to sit down and get every single part, every single detail that I wanted, I would never ever be completed with getting a PC. Especially when they're updating the parts literally every single year. Every year they just came, I think just recently they just announced that a new graphics card is coming out. Didn't the graphics card come out last year? Now y'all are already coming out with another graphics card. I'm saying, man, that's to me, that's too much. I'm like, that's way too much. When I could just go out and just spend $500 on an Xbox Series X and legit have the same type of graphics that I play on a PC game. Because I've been playing on the Xbox Series X lately, and as far as I can tell, every game that's been optimized for the Xbox Series X, now there might be some older games that came out a while ago, but it's usually like that. Older games' graphics are going to be a little bit bad compared to certain games today. But if they optimize it, it's going to be perfectly fine. There's going to be no problems with it. So I think a lot of people are thinking that that's what the Xbox Series X is. And the PlayStation 5 is because they're just not paying attention to it. And so, the reason why I'm doing this podcast episode, because somebody commented, so there's this game coming out called The Days Before, and it's this zombie apocalypse game. It looks really sick. And I was like, and I think I made a comment in the video saying man, I hope this game comes out on console. And so somebody had just commented on the video saying that if the game were to come out on console, it'll run at 10 frames per second. And I'm like, we're not talking about the Nintendo 64 or PlayStation 2. We're talking about the latest models of the Xbox and the PlayStation, which both of those consoles both run at 60 frames per second and optimize every single brand new game for 4K quality. So what console are you paying attention to? Because as I recall, oh, so they just responded. Let me see what they said real quick, because I'm like, nah. There's going to be a whole discussion. Let me move my headphones out the way because it'd be carrying too much space on my computer or on my laptop. So anyways, or table. That's what I'm trying to say. But anyways, so they said, yeah, I'm saying for the most of at least my family and friends, they're going to be playing on PS4 and Xbox One. So unless they're on like PS5 or Xbox Series X or something higher, it would run well at like Cyberpunk altogether. Nice video. Like I had to freaking that person. I don't even know what they're. So yeah, like of course, like I'm not saying like I think I was like I recorded this video after I got my Xbox Series X. So I'm like, my thing is, it's like I'm completely done with the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3. I'm done with all of that. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, Sony and Microsoft, they're almost done with it. So my thing is that yes, on a new console, and then there's like mentioning Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk to me, it looked amazing on Xbox, on the Xbox Series X. Now, yes, on the last gen consoles, game looked horrible. Game looked completely horrible. But whose fault was that? That was the developer's fault, because they've had this game in development for how many years now? Like, this game's been in development for a while. So that's not on the console's fault. No, that's the developers for not optimizing it for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. So I'm like, you can't blame a whole console for that. I'm like, yeah, my thing is like, if the developers, if they want to go like backwards and release a brand new game, then they can very well do that. Now, one thing I do remember, when the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, when them consoles was coming out, one of the games that they released, and I think it was Black Ops 3. When Black Ops 3 came out on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, they didn't even have all of the features. So, of course, like on the last gen console, it's not going to be the same. And that's why I'm like, okay, like, yeah, when only release it on next gen consoles. I'm not saying to release it on like the older consoles and stuff. So that's why I'm like, yeah, I don't know what this person. I'm like, obviously, I'm talking on the newer consoles or the newer models, but yeah, I'm like, the family and friends. I'm like, look, bro, I'm like, whatever they're playing, that's what they're playing. But I'm like, and the crazy thing about it, so with that game that I was talking on the days before, so that game looks exactly like this other game called The Division. Now, I played both 1 and 2 on the new consoles. Game looks amazing. The first one was a little bit glitchy, so I wouldn't recommend playing the first one right now, because I think developers, Ubisoft, just stopped focusing on that game. So really the only one that they're focused on is the second one. Now, playing the second one on the new console, and they just recently optimized it, the game looks amazing. And the days before legit looks just like, so if you look at a side-by-side viewing of the first Division and the days before, it looks exactly the same. Exactly the same. I have to say the only difference is that there's zombies in one of them. And then in the other one, it's just regular people. So that's why I'm like, the games look exactly the same. So it could possibly be released on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. But I think what they're more so seeing, the people that made that game, they're seeing if this game is going to do well on PC. Because if you sit down and think about the release of Cyberpunk 2077, imagine if they had just released that game on PC. Then they would be able to see all of the problems, they would be able to fix all the problems, and then when it comes out on console, people wouldn't have to worry about playing with like bad graphics or any of that other extra stuff. But since they released everything all together, then they face some problems. And it's like they had to focus on the PC version. Then people on Xbox Ones and PlayStation 4, they were like, oh, well, my hand is raised. I'm having issues. So can you come over here and help us? So then they got run over to the last gen consoles. And I can't really say that I've experienced. There's like maybe like a few bugs and glitches that I experienced on the newer consoles. But other than that, I was like, I don't see any problems with it. Like, I can play this game. I could have played that game like when it very first came out. I just didn't have no problems with it. And I wasn't going to be that person where I nitpick and find problems with stuff. Like, I feel like that it's those people where it's like, look, maybe you just need to stay away from video games, because that's one thing that I've discovered that I just don't really like about certain gamers are the ones that like nitpick about things like, oh well, there's this minor detail where your character's eyes wouldn't blink. I'm like, are you playing the game so your character can blink, or are you playing the game to follow the story, do the levels, do the side missions, and all this other stuff? When people like nitpick about stuff like that, I'm like, who cares? Who cares? I wish my character didn't even have any eyes. How about that? So I wouldn't even have to focus on them. But I've seen that so many different times. And there's a lot of times like when I would want to play a certain video game and then it'd just be a person like nitpicking about it and stuff. And those are like more so like certain reviewers and stuff on like social media or YouTube or whatever. And they're all like, oh, there's this little minor detail. There's this little tiny detail where they did. And I'm like, who cares? Who cares? But younger, I was just all like, oh, then that's going to probably throw off my gaming experience with this game. But then as you get older, you're like, I don't care for that. I just want to play the game. Then you play it. Then it's like, yo, this game is actually fun. Like, I wasn't even thinking about that bug or that problem in the game or something. So I'm like, yeah, I'm like, forget that. So anyways, but yeah, with Cyberpunk, I was like, yeah, that's, if we're going to talk on that game, the developers, that's on them. They said they had been working on this game for, let's see how long have they been working on Cyberpunk 2077. When did this game initial release? Is it 2020 game? Blah, blah, blah. Well, let's see. Development, release, and marketing was announced. So this game was announced in May 2012. I was in high school when this game was announced. High school. How old was I? I think I was I was a junior. I was a junior in high school. Oh, wow. That is crazy. I didn't realize they got announced that long. I thought it was like at least like after I had graduated from high school. Wow, that's crazy. And then there's like trailers for the game released in January 2013 at EA 2018 and at E3 or E3 2018 and E3 2019. The game was initially confirmed for Microsoft Windows, with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One announced at E3 2018. Stadia was announced in August 2019. So this game was like, so they announced this game in 2012. So you had almost 10 years. You guys had 8 years to focus on this game to release what you guys released. You cannot blame the newer consoles or any of that stuff for the game's poor performance. No, that is on the developers. The developers had this game all the way announced back then when it had announced it for PlayStation and Xbox. So it's like you guys, so 2018, 19, 2020, you guys had almost 3 years, like what, maybe like 2.5 years or something, but you guys had almost 3 years to focus on the console version, and you guys didn't. Like, that's why, and I have to say then also, like, you gotta blame the fans too, because the fans, I didn't even really care for this game. As soon as it came, or when it was like, when they announced there, said like, oh, this is gonna be the last like release date, the game is coming out on this day, because when did the game, I can't remember when the game came out. But anyways, but yeah, when the game did come out, I was like, oh, cool, I guess. Like, I don't really care that much for it to play it. But, oh, yeah, sure, I'm like, of course I'm going to play it. But I don't mind waiting. Like, if my thing is that if the developers, like, that's why I'm like, I think it's best for games to be in the early access. Like, I think all games should be like that, where they should be in the early access thing. So you will know, like, hey, we're not finished with this game, but here's this version of it and stuff. So yeah, it's like there's no problem with doing that with games, but no, people, they just get so antsy and just get so eager to play a game, and I'm like, yeah, that's why you guys played the unfinished game. I'm like, that's why you guys are so upset and pressed and mad at the fact that, oh, this game wasn't all the way finished. And I'm like, well, of course it's not going to be all the way finished. They never was finished with that game. And they announced that game in 2012, and they had to keep delaying it and delaying it and delaying it. Of course that game wasn't going to be finished when it came out. So that's why I'm like, no, you gotta blame the fans on that one. So it's like, you just let people be patient and just let them just focus on the game and focus on developing the best version of it that they can possibly develop. You won't be playing an unfinished game. Period. All right. So take that. Remember that. Don't try to argue with me like, oh, well, that no. Let them be patient so they can give you a finished game. And if you don't let them be patient, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get another Cyberpunk 2077. I already have a feeling there's going to be people out there who are like, oh, maybe if they... No, there ain't no maybe. There ain't no argument. There ain't none of that stuff. Let them be patient. I don't care if they announced that game in freaking 1984 or 1955, all the way back when Marty McFly was traveling back and forth to the future. Let them focus on the game, and when it comes out, that's when you can play it. But I'm like, that's why I'm like, yeah, if I was developing a game, people was all like, oh, you gotta go, like, no, I released the game on my own time. I'm like, you guys ain't gonna try to bully me into releasing this game early, and then when it comes out, then, oh, you guys want to give it bad ratings and all that stuff. Now I'm like, that game, it could have been a good game, but you gotta blame the fans on that one. So anyways, and that being said, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching and or listening. If you're viewing this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you're viewing this on a podcast streaming service, make sure you follow or subscribe, however it's set up. And follow me on Twitch. Subscribe to all my YouTube channels. I got 30 YouTube channels. Follow me on social media. For Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch, just search up TMossBoss and you'll find my accounts. And yeah, that being said, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching and or listening, and peace.